If you're trying to lead in 2025 with a 2015 playbook, you're basically shipping legacy code to a production world. I'm Sayan, and this is AiBiz, where we cut through the noise around AI and leadership to talk about what actually drives outcome and people forward. Today's guest, Keith Addison, has done the hard miles, scaling teams at Meta, at DoorDash, hiring hundreds of operators, and now coaching ambitious professionals to become the obvious choice for promotion by upgrading not just their tool set, but also their mindset. So, today we are going hands on. No buzzword bingo, just real workflows, real decision making, and the human edge that separates busy managers from durable AI native leaders. So let's dive right in. So, welcome to the show, Keith. It's an absolute honor to have you here with me today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here speaking with you and everyone listening in.
Wonderful. I'm way too excited to talk about this, Keith. But before we get into the habits and systems of the great AI native leaders, I want to start with something foundational, right? Because everywhere I look, teams are just rushing to deploy AI, right? But most, I believe, are doing it backwards. They start with the tool, not with the thesis. They, buy software, they invest in software before defining the strategy. So, what's your take on this? Instead of starting with random tools, how can a manager quickly create a focused AI strategy, right? That connects directly to the company's, KPIs, like real revenue growth, reducing risk, and so forth and so on.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say first, it's understanding kind of uh, what actually AI is in terms of driving business metrics. What you see a lot of, what's happening a lot of now is just a lot of noise, a lot of new tools, like
Mhm.
new initiatives that all these companies are doing. But at the end of the day, if we put it back to the business metrics that we know, right? Which is driving revenue and reducing costs and driving efficiency, then we can start cutting through the noise to understand more about what we can do in the short term, medium term, and long term with AI. And similar to what you just said, I can't agree more. I talk to a lot of leaders who are doing AI initiatives, quote unquote, by getting like hundreds of license for ChatGPT for their
Right.
team, and they're like, okay, this is AI. Now we have it, and it's short sighted. That being
Yeah.
said, some of the obstacles that leaders face is pressure, right? Pressure from either C-suite, the CEO, or the board who is saying, "Hey, we need to move quickly on this." So
Mhm.
I would say for leaders out there, understanding the high level business metrics that you want to derive with AI, but then be very realistic about what can actually be done now versus in 2 years from now versus 5 years, right? And then beyond that, potentially, uh, that's where you will get the most value of using AI, and then also be able to navigate the very real human and people part of being part of an organization and representing and driving products for humans, with humans working there and figuring out what that narrative and what that experience is for both internally your employees and externally.
Right, 100%. I agree to everything you said. And that's a practical takeaway. That's like saying, oh, try ChatGPT to de-risk churn by 2%. Instantly, it turns from a playground experiment to, I would say, a business lever, right? And honestly, that kind of clarity just doesn't come from, uh, you know, the technical skills like you mentioned, indirectly. It comes from leadership judgment. So I want to ask you this. You have hired hundreds or thousands, right? So, what new leadership signals tell you someone can lead, the AI-enabled teams beyond smart and hardworking?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a few things. There's uh connecting the dots between where
Mm,
things are now with where they can be in the future. And essentially, on that same lines, critical thinking, right? Like, where are we now and where are we going? And not just listening to the noise of what other people are saying, but you need to, during hiring conversations, you need to be able to articulate uh, where things are, where you see opportunities, and then potential
mm,
pitfalls, even without not knowing the entire background of the business or anything, right? Um, what I look for when I hire people, ever since I started hiring people for leadership roles is uh, people who are able to be more of a consultant to me, even during the interview, but throughout my process working with them. Because I'm not looking for just operators, right? Or operators, I'm looking for people who can work with me, right? Even if I'm their leader or their manager, it's the hierarchical structure that we've become so accustomed to is really outdated. And for us to be able to be more like peers across the board for leaders and even for individual contributors,
mm,
that's where it's driving business metrics forward. But not only that, now in the age of AI, we have AI doing a lot of this really ground work, this fundamental work. So you need to be able to step outside of that from a leadership perspective, and that's by really understanding who you are as a person, what your true value is to the company, and then how you can lead through authenticity
mm.
um, and through who you are, through your humanity, not through
Right.
this generic robot sense. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. And that actually reminds me, because I was working in a project myself where, we were building a tool to automate interviews, right, with the help of AI. So it's like a SaaS product that we were building, which had like different kinds of assessments and, uh, interview setup where, the AI will ask you questions and monitor your, eyeball position and all that. So there are a lot of nuances there. But what's your take on this? Can an AI tool really distinguish that line between great leaders, um, and the ones who are not, obviously. I mean, this is something, that because you're talking about interviews, so my mind naturally shifts there. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, so let me understand a bit more of the product you're talking about. Is it something where during interviews, the interviewee gets live feedback on how they're interviewing and like what they could do better? Is that
Yeah, yeah. So the product that we were building, so the product's name is actually dot AI. It's still in development, but the beta is out live there. It was last year. I'm not working there anymore. But it's crazy to think about. So it had like different roles in there. Like obviously, it had roles for developers where it would give real feedbacks to the developers. It would basically change the question. So for example, if the question is about, um, let's say it's about JavaScript, right? But but the candidate is, let's say, doing it wrong, right? So the AI will
Mm,
shift the question to something else if it's doing wrong. So it was like that, but for it also had roles for like the product management roles, the EM's role as well. So what's your take on this? Like, do you think an AI tool can really distinguish the line between great leaders and those who are not? Or do you
yeah,
believe human intervention is required?
it's a wonderful question. So as of 2022, we're now in the age of AI, right? And
Mm,
it's not something that it's not like a light switch where things flip automatically, right? I think honestly, from what you're saying, the tool that you're talking about, I think right now in 2024, 2025, that can be great, right?
mm,
Because the roles that companies are hiring for, I'm
mm,
not talking about leadership right now, but in general, right? They haven't been impacted so much by AI yet,
mm.
right? But
Right.
now companies are uh, companies are adapting and figuring out ways to cut through that noise of like humans sounding like AIs, right? And
Mm,
it's not something that has perfected now, but it's
true,
getting there, right? So
true.
I, I do think now a tool like that can be good for general interviewing, like for
Mm.
engineers, for
Right.
program managers, product managers. But moving into the future, I don't think that's going to be enough. As if robots can do it, if computers and AI can do it, what
Mm,
value are you bringing? If you're just
true.
regurgitating what some
Mm,
AI interviewer is telling you to say, I don't see long term value in that
mm,
because the job market is completely changing. Accenture just released a report where they said that 75% of roles in the next 5 years are going to be eliminated, and
mm,
those 25 that remain are going to be focused on AI operations. So the types of roles are going to be very different. So those schools of like, or sorry, the skills of like hard coding with JavaScript, Python, what have you, uh, you'll need to know at a high level what is going on, but like you don't need to know those
absolutely.
nitty-gritty details. So that's where things are
Absolutely.
moving. So you need to adapt to that. And I would say, in terms of your question about leadership,
Mm,
you know, I think sure, like maybe maybe you could get a leadership role from something like that. I don't know, but the
mhm.
thing is with leaders, it's like, okay, sure, you passed the interview round, but like it's your job is basically communication. Essentially, that's what
Right.
leaders do.
Right.
And if you're just following like an AI prompt or AI script during an interview, it's sad and it's unfortunate for you because you're probably going to get into that role and you're not
Right.
going to have the skills to function. So you're making more work for yourself and more agony and um and everything when you don't need that. So I would not recommend a tool like that, to be honest, for
Mm, leadership.
leaders.
Right.
Because
Right. Right. Absolutely.
there's this short-term advantage of maybe using a tool like that if it's amazing and you land the roles, but like the long-term impact, it's way worse than not getting a
Mhm.
role, you know?
True, true, true. I mean, totally, because it maybe, does wonder, in hiring, let's say, engineering roles or technical roles. But when you talk about leaders, right, I think it's about identifying who can learn fast and make the right call. So you said communication. I totally agree, but I think there's also diplomacy, right? And I think
Mm.
the AI is not there yet to, distinguish that fine line between diplomacy and communication and diplomacy. So that actually brings me to this key, that how do you reframe, how do you turn AI from something teams fear into a co-pilot they actually trust without losing accountability or performance pressure along the way?
So let me make sure I understand. Do you mean how can the workforce adapt and adjust based on changes in AI? And also how can organizations adjust as well too?
Yeah, yeah. Let me rephrase that. People, I mean, employees fear, right, that they're gonna lose the job, and that fear, I think, is a wall in between, in the process of the adoption that their leaders are trying to put on. So, how do you turn AI from something teams fear into a co-pilot they actually trust?
Yeah, I a few things. So first, I think that people on the ground level or all people in the company should be part of the discussion on the
Right.
AI tools and on what's happening and how it's using. You should do a pilot. Make sure you're getting real feedback on how it's working. And when I say working, I don't just mean operationally. Yes, that, but more than that, it's also like emotionally, how are people identifying with it? Like cognitively, how is their day to day adjusting in like white collar work? It's all about our brains. How are they adjusting to that where they're not really relying as much on their cognitive skills? right? And what is that looking like for them? And I would say, too, for people who are in the workforce who are navigating this, you really need to be in tune with like wha what is happening and everything that's moving fast, what you need to adopt, what you don't need to adopt, and then really believe it or not, be in tune with your feelings and your emotions towards it, right? Because it's you don't want to just move on this fast moving train if you feel mixed about it, right? You don't know where you're going. So you need to first get in tune with how you can personally identify with how AI is progressing and identify what how you identify how you identify with AI in this regard. So I know what I'm saying is maybe a little bit more counterintuitive, but it's first getting clear about who you are as an individual, who you are in the workforce, what you stand for, what your values are, and centering yourself on that, and then identifying what AI tools, what things on that level can help support what you're doing, right? Is it
Mm,
are you in agreement with the organization where it's going or are you not, right? I mean, it's a whole bunch of different things to look at there. But
mm.
again, like
That's
first,
brutally honest,
it's
Keith.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Um anyway, yeah.
Y-
So I
mm,
last thing I'm just gonna say for that is get in tune with who you are. Don't just follow the noise. That's human nature, I think. We just follow the herd. Don't do that. Get clear on who you are. Identify what your philosophy is around AI and how it's helping and supporting you. And then if other people are in alignment with that with you, wonderful. If they're not, then
mm,
you look for something else because it's kind of like
mm.
the wild, wild west right now.
True, true. That's the move, like show an operator's fingerprints and outcomes. It's not a vibe tech. Keith, thank you so much. It has been, packed with real actionable insight, not just theory, but operating truth from someone who's lived it at scale. Thanks for breaking it down with such clarity. And before we just wrap this off, where can people follow your work or connect with you if they want to dive deeper into your leadership and AI playbooks?
Sure. So I have for leaders, I have a free community on School called the Undeniable Leader, where it's the community of other people who are navigating similar challenges, whether it's adapting their leadership style in the age of AI or landing their next role, leveraging AI skills and who they are as a leader in this age to land this next role. Anyway, to join that community, it is at careeralchemylab.com/leader. And then if you are interested in following me on LinkedIn or Facebook, you go to linkedin.com/in/Heath and KEITHAND. And I post daily, Monday through Friday, on insightful leadership posts and tips and tricks on how to navigate the leadership in the age of AI.
Wonderful. The listeners, I'll have the show notes, at bottom below, so you can check them out anytime you want at your own convenience. And with that, unfortunately, we come to an end to today's episode with Keith Anderson. Keith, that was the kind of conversation I think every modern leader needs to hear. Grounded, practical, and brutally relevant in today's age of AI. My biggest takeaway from this is great leaders don't just use AI, they teach it how to think with them, right? And that's also something you mentioned about. They turn insights into systems and fear into fuel. So, for everyone listening to this right now, here's your challenge. Don't just end this episode with some kind of inspiration, but end it with a plan. Draft that one page AI brief tonight. Tie it to money, risk, roadmap, whatever might be the KPI for you. And then share this episode with the teammate who's got one promotion away from stepping up. They'll thank you later. This is AiBiz, where emotional intelligence meets execution. This is Sayan. And until next time, lead with clarity, think with courage. Thank you.